We're going to cover the bases right now. You know the drill. Favorite plays in the following categories for tonight's ginormous 2-game baseball slate. First base. So give me your favorite DFS pitcher, Matty.
This is a fun slate, only 2 games, and one of them is at Coors Field. So that's going to make it pretty condensed as far as what the field is doing. I think most lineups are going to have one or more of the pitchers that are not at Coors for obvious reasons. It's a tough place to pitch. But I actually like Germán Marquez more than either Cole Irvin or Chris Flexen. And I think part of it is that he will be a little more contrarian than those guys because he's pitching at Coors. He's facing the Nationals, who've actually been decent offensively lately. They have Juan Soto, who probably has been the best hitter in baseball since the All-Star break. So I think it's probably a tough matchup for Marquez, but none of these pitchers are particularly good. Like, I'm not excited to play Chris Flexen or Cole Irvin, especially if they're chalk. I think Marquez has the upside, though, the strikeout upside that those other guys don't have. So even though there's a lot of risk for him being at Coors, facing the Nationals, I think the combination of being a little bit more contrarian than those two and having the strikeout upside makes him a better play.
Paul, favorite DFS pitcher? Not many to choose from.
No, there aren't. I'm going to go with Mariners Flexen tonight, though. The Mariners swept the A's in Oakland last week in a 4-game set. Flexen served up 7 innings of 3-hit ball with 8 strikeouts and only 2 walks in winning one of those outings, so much for not being much of a strikeout pitcher. In fact, he's done well of late. In his last 10 starts, 4-1 record, supported by a 3.12 ERA, 49 strikeouts, and only 16 walks in 60 innings pitched. I'll take that, a share of that tonight for sure. His mount opponent, meanwhile, Cole Irvin, has stumbled of late with a 3-5 record, a 300 opposing batting average, and a 159 whip over his last 52 innings pitched. T-Mobile Park will be rocking in this one, giving the home side an added boost. So I'm on Flexen for sure.
Erik, favorite DFS pitcher, who is it?
Well, somehow we're going to end up on 3 different guys out of
nice
4 possible options. I'll go Josiah Gray here. We got, 2 guys who don't strike out at anybody and 2 guys pitching at Coors. I think Gray probably has more strikeout upside than Marquez. Germán Marquez is basically league average there, which counts as strikeout upside compared to the 2 guys in the American League game. Gray's strikeout rate this season is only a little bit higher at 24.9%. But it was way higher in the minors. In his minor league career, it's up at 29.2%. And this year, in just 4 outings, 38.6% strikeout rate. So he definitely has that upside. He showed it last time out by striking out 8 guys. He's clearly a flawed pitcher at this stage in his career, as you can tell by his 5.92 ERA. And the ERA estimators are actually all over the place for him. xERA is all the way down at 4.47, which suggests he's not giving up that hard contact. Whereas his FIP is all the way up at 638 because he's given up a ton of homers. And that is a problem at Coors. I think there's a very real chance you start Josiah Gray. He tanks your entire lineup. But we only have 4 guys to choose from. So I think going with the guy who's the cheapest and there's at least a path to seeing it work out is what I'm doing, especially because the Rockies are about as unintimidating as we've ever seen them. It's still Coors, so it's still a tough matchup, but that's less true, I think, this year than ever before.
All right, we're making our way to second base here, guys. Your favorite DFS hitter, Paul?
Well, the guy's name came up already. I go straight to the top of the board on a thin slate such as tonight's schedule. I want to get the biggest masher who's hot, and there's nobody finer in that regard than Juan Soto heading into this contest on a big-time tear. 13 hits, including 4 homers and 7 extra base knocks in his last 30 at-bats. He faces Germán Marquez, who surrendered 11 homers and 34 earned runs in his last 50 innings pitched. I think they call this one a no-brainer, folks.
All right, Erik, how about you, dude? Favorite DFS hitter?
Well, the correct answer to any question involving hitters is always Juan Soto, but for the sake of talking about somebody else, I'll go with Ty France here. I think a really nice mid-priced option at 4,400. He's having a very solid season, 290 with 18 homers. Expected batting average is a bit below that at 265, but he's suddenly really making a ton of contact, cut his strikeout rate under 17%, knocking a full 7 percentage points off what it was last year, where it was already right about league average, so perfectly fine. He's really actually caught fire in the second half, hitting 322 with 10 homers. And I would think that would continue here against Cole Irvin, who I don't really have any faith in. 3.99 ERA is better than what all the ERA estimators say. Just doesn't strike out anybody. 16.1% strikeout rate. You can be sustainably good with a low strikeout rate and a low walk rate, which he does have if you keep the ball on the ground, but he doesn't do that either. He's at 37.2% for his ground ball rate, so well below league average. Just exactly the kind of pitcher that I'm looking to stack against, and I think France is one of the most reasonably priced Mariners going tonight.
Matt, favorite DFS hitter?
Mine is Starling Marte, and a lot of it has to do with the position for him. So as an outfielder, there just won't be any attention going towards him because of the outfielders in the Coors Field game. So Juan Soto obviously is there and should be the highest owned player on the slate, outside of maybe Trevor Story just because of the lack of shortstops. But Soto will be up there. Lane Thomas in the leadoff spot, only 4K. Raimel Tapia on the other side, probably leading off for 3,500. So most of the outfielders are just coming from Coors, and as a result of that, I think Marte comes in like 10 to 15% owned, while all those other guys are 30 to 50, maybe even more than that. And Marte is just a really, really good fantasy player. He's a great hitter, draws walks, steals bases, does all the fantasy scoring things you would want, should have 4+, probably 5 plate appearances batting in the leadoff spot on the road. So I think Marte as a pivot off basically all of the Coors outfielders makes a lot of sense.
All right, guys, hot corner, third base. Favorite DFS value? Erik.
Yeah, as I usually do for this question, I took a look at the Rotowire value report. Get that company plug in there. The top value play is actually Sam Hilliard, although I won't recommend him because I recommended Josiah Gray earlier, who he's facing against. But tied for second is Yadiel Hernandez at 2,800, the Nationals outfielder. Nothing too exciting about him, but he's been a league average hitter, which is not bad for a guy debuting in his early 30s after coming over in his late 20s from Cuba. He has exactly a 100 WRC plus this season, hitting 275 with 9 homers in 274 plate appearances. That's 20 homer pace if he had a full 600 plate appearance season. It's not super exciting, but that guy going for less than 3,000 in Coors Field, he normally hits about 5th in the order too. He's facing, and we'll get the platoon advantage against German Marquez, who, given the slate, you might be forced to turn to, but I wouldn't, considering how he's pitched lately. 11 earned runs in just 8 total innings over his last 2 starts, with more walks than strikeouts over that stretch. If you go back over his last 6 starts, it's an ERA north of 7. So I think Hernandez is quite cheap for a guy who's completely fine, and completely fine at Coors Field is exactly where I want to be.
Matt, again, a small slate, so where's the value?
Yeah, I think there's a super contrarian hitter who does have slate breaking upside, and that's Chris Davis, although I don't know for sure that he'll be in the lineup. And this isn't a guy that we've talked a lot about recently. He's been platooning with Jed Lowry and some other guys that the A's have, some left-handed hitters like Tony Kemp and Seth Brown. But I think both of those guys will be in the starting lineup also. Jed Lowry is currently injured. Elvis Andrus is injured. So I think what all of that means is that Chris Davis actually, if he starts, will play the whole game and there won't be a reason to pinch hit for him. So him getting 4 chances at a home run, like that's basically what you're playing for with him, is he hits a home run or 2, because it's strikeout or bust most of the time with either of the Chris Davises, but this one is the only one that's playing right now. I just don't think anyone's going to play him because, like I said, outfielders I think will all skew towards Coors Field. Chris Davis is super cheap at 2,500. But still, because most of the field is playing Chris Flexen, you won't see him in many lineups. So I think there is some upside for him, obviously assuming that he's a starter for tonight.
All right, Paul, value, please.
You know what? When this question comes up, I look for guys who are outperforming their season-long numbers of late, and they have a decent mark against the opposing pitcher. J.P. Crawford fits the bill for me tonight. The M's shortstop comes into the game with a 13 for 44 streak overall, including 5 extra base knocks last week, and he has a 5 for 11 record against A's starter Irvin this season. That's a lot of positive numbers in addition to Irvin's recent struggles that I pointed out earlier. You get that for only $3,900. I'm also hoping to catch lightning in a bottle with Jared Kalanick, who has 4 homers in his last 10 games played. I already covered the struggles of Cole Irvin and with the home run ball, so I'll give Kalanick a play for $3,400.
All right, Maddie, take us home here. Your favorite bets on the DraftKings Sportsbook for this 2-game MLB slate.
Okay, so the bet that I like most for the whole day is actually on the early one, but I'll give my favorite, for the 2 games here. I like the under prop on Josiah Gray's strikeouts, and it's not that I don't agree with a lot of what Erik said about him, especially because he's facing the Rockies, who are going to be the chalk offense, so you get some leverage playing him. But Coors Field is a tough place to get strikeouts. We see pitchers who are coming off a game or 2 where they struck out a bunch of hitters have inflated lines because of those recent results, and the lines don't tend to adjust enough for the fact that they're going into Coors, which is a place where we think of home runs flying out as the main park effect, but that's not really the case. What mostly happens is the pitches don't break as much and there's just more contact. So I think Gray at 4.5 strikeouts probably goes under there. It's not my favorite bet in the world. We don't have a lot to choose from tonight, but I think amongst the options here, that's my favorite call.
Yeah. Did you have another bet you wanted to share? You can.
Yeah, let's go with the early one. So
okay.
I'm going against Cal Quantrill with the Royals. I just don't really buy him as a good pitcher. The Royals have a better lineup than the Indians, so at plus 160 or so, that's the one I like for the early games.
All right, good stuff. Paul, what about you, dude?
I go back to Soto for the home run prop to pay it plus 350, as I referenced how hot he's been with my answer to question number 2. And I also see the run line set at 11.5 in that Nats Rockies game. So I'll take a look at the alternate run line for a better payoff, counting on the Rockies who've scored 25 in their last 7, which includes a 10-run effort, by the way, and the Nats who've scored 42 in their last 9 to stay in those ranges and combine for less than 10 runs tonight. That'll pay off at plus 145 for me.
Erik, take us home. Favorite baseball bet?
Yes, probably not a surprise given the guys that I recommended in our DFS sections, but I'll take the Nationals at plus 150 over the Rockies. At this stage of the year, when you got two teams who are completely out of it, you should assume it's pretty close to a coin flip. It just depends on which team feels like showing up that day. In theory, German Marquez over Josiah Gray is a decent advantage that could give the Nationals, make them justifiably something like a plus 150 underdog. But with the way that Marquez has been pitching lately, again, more walks than strikeouts in his last 2 starts with 11 earned runs in just 8 innings and a 7.07 ERA over his last 6 starts. I'm not convinced that Marquez is a whole lot better right now than what Josiah Gray is, especially Gray coming off a very strong start. So I think this one should be pretty close to a coin flip. Definitely not plus 150 for the Nationals.